Kia ora, g'day, welcome back here with a bit of a follow-up to a recent video that I did. I think I only put a few questions on there in regards to, as I just look on the screen here, the SAS Selection Q&As. And this is just on the back end of some additional comments from people with, really good experience as well. One of the feedback comments was, if you have to ask, you are not ready. It's all mindset. Go out and get it. If you really want it, you might get it. So good feedback, solid feedback from that person in the comments for the video. People can go along and have a look. I don't usually read out the handles. Most of the time I don't. Sometimes I do. One of the guys is kind enough to follow me. He also put, to the man that left the first comment, go for it, fella. If you fail first time, use it and learn from it and try again. Like Joe said, failing isn't the end of the world. Good luck, mate. So and he's got a bicep emoji in there. And then one of the other kind supporters, followers of my channel, Solly, I usually mention him. He's got a couple of questions. I don't know if they were for me or if they were for the other guy that put in the comment, but I see the other guys answered pretty much all the questions, which is cool. But this one he's got, did you feel prepared before you tried selection? Question mark. And then the second one, did you ever come close to failing? So the first one, did you feel prepared before you tried selection? I felt as prepared as I thought I was going to be. So yeah, I physically, mentally, I felt like I was ready to go. So yeah, I went for it. I had already had my application in anyway, so it wasn't like, oh, I feel ready today, I'll put in my application now. I put in my application when I still probably wasn't where I needed to be physically and or dare I say mentally, but I put in my application anyway. And then as the date started getting closer, yep, nerves do increase, or they did increase for me anyway, and just went out there and got after it. So then the second one, did you ever come close to failing? Not that I'm aware of, from a, well, like the navigation and timings and things like that. I don't know if I came close to failing. Like from a personal perspective, if you mean, did I ever feel like I was going to quit or anything? No, like there was none of that thought that went through my head. As I've shared many times, there's only 3 ways I was coming off selection course, and quitting just wasn't one of those things, at least for me, in my head at that time. Was it a reality of it could have happened? Yeah, anything's possible, could have happened, but it's not something that that I did anyway, so thankfully. But in terms of, did I ever come close to failing, there may have been elements when the directing staff are assessing and checking. Yeah, there could have been some parts in there where I may not have been doing very well, but I don't know if that was the case, because we didn't get it's not like you got handed back a course report at the end of selection or anything like that. And I think at that stage, although it may have been helpful if they did provide something like that, maybe they do something like that these days, I don't know. At least during my time in NZ and Australia, there was no end of selection feedback or a course report to say, or which showed how we went or how we did. Like other courses that we had done, we'd get a course report back, and it'd have a summary, and it'd have the competencies of what you needed to meet, and then it'd have some comments and stuff in there in terms of how you were going, how well you did, or areas whereby might need to have further exposure and time in the saddle, so to speak, to get to develop more competence, but may have met the minimum standard at this time. So yeah, hopefully that helps, and appreciate the questions. The rest of the questions that Solly's put in there, I'll leave them, because I'm pretty sure they were directed for the other fella that's taken the time and put in some really good answers and stuff in there as well. Actually, I might just look up, there was one that he spoke about a guy that went on selection after a year. So here it is. So one of the guys responded, Solly's got 4 ? I know Hugh, so he'd be talking about Hugh Keir. Check out his HR podcast if you haven't already. I know Hugh said in the paras there was a guy who was in for 1 year, went on selection, then passed. So as far as I'm aware, don't quote me on it, on the UK SF selection, you have to have been in, I think one of the guys here says 4 years. I thought it was anywhere from 4 to 5 years before you could apply to even get on a selection in UK. In NZ and Australia, in NZ and Australia, as far as I'm aware, possibly still to this day, it's different. It's not like that. So guys can apply to do selection. Doesn't mean that they'll get on, but they can apply pretty much as soon as they've finished, say as an example, infantry corps training. So they might have done a 12 or 16 week basic training, all arms. Then they might have done a 12 or 16 week infantry corps training. Then once they get posted to a battalion, then they can apply for selection. And guys have been allowed to go on selection if they've met all the other prerequisites that they need to meet, and they've submitted it all in time and they've got everything done. So, you know, I think I mentioned in my one, when I finished my basic and then corps training march out, we got to battalion, and one of the guys that I joined up with, I didn't realize that he had been territorial force beforehand, so that maybe that was why. So he had done maybe a year or 2 years or something like that. Still not a lot of time. Maybe he did more time in the TF, I'm not sure. But apparently he was territorial force before he went and applied. But as soon as we finished corps training and got to battalion, he put in his application for selection. So he would have been in battalion less than a year, maybe, I don't know, 8-9 months, something like that, maybe less, and then went on selection and passed selection. He went on cycle, didn't get through cycle the first time, come back, and then he came back when I was on cycle. So he came back to battalion. They gave him another chance to just sort of work on a few things and then come back, and then him and I ended up on the same cycle together, and he got through and got badged here in NZ. So I don't know what the process is in Australia. I would assume it's pretty similar. Guys can apply, but then whether or not they meet the expectations or requirements what the ADF requires before they'll allow someone to go on selection is up to them, obviously. And in NZ, yeah, you can still do that to this day. So you don't have to have served 4 years or 5 years. To be clear, like, it is generally recommended, and it was recommended like that when I joined the army. They said, get at least 3, maybe 5 years under your belt before you go on selection. I was like, why? I don't want to wait that long. Like, if I can get on selection now and hopefully get in the unit sooner rather than later, then that's where I want to be. So that's what I'm going to do. Had they told me, I had to wait until I'd done 3 years in battalion or anything like that, then I would have had no choice. I would have waited. But pretty sure I've spoken about this before, but that's the sort of process in NZ in terms of context. Some people in the UK or people elsewhere might go, oh, that's no good. I don't think that's very good. They haven't developed enough life skills and experience and all that sort of thing. And I guess there's some truth to that. But at the same time, I look at it as though, and I think I experienced some of that firsthand, like being a young fella going on selection, going on cycle, being surrounded by these other soldiers that had, some had in excess of 10 years experience. Some were sergeants, some were corporals, and some were like 5-6 year baggies or privates. So that I was surrounded by a lot of experience. And then you got the instructors, the directing staff who are already members of the unit. You can't help, in my opinion, but regardless of where you're at, like if you are capable enough to get through and pass selection, then I think you've got enough knowledge and experience around you within the unit that, in my opinion, can only help you. Like once you get more and more exposure to it and you finally get in. UK's obviously got a different process altogether because they don't have a selection and cycle. They've just got that roughly 6 month, or maybe it's longer, selection process, which goes through the aptitude, the navigation stuff, into the combat survival and their jungle phase and their resistance to interrogation and demolitions and etc., all the other stuff, the counter-terrorism and a whole bunch of things all merged into one package, whereas NZ and Australia is a bit different. So you've got a selection piece in both those countries, and then you've got the cycle, which is all those other courses that I just spoke about, that the UK combine into what's deemed their selection process. So maybe that might be why, because some of the stresses of just this jungle phase alone, let alone the counter-terrorism black roll stuff, is extremely hard. Like even Kiwis that have gone over and passed 2-2 selection, and that includes the jungle phase and all that sort of stuff, even they've spoken about the jungle phase was very, very challenging. Like they loved it, they enjoyed it. Some parts maybe not so much, but I think that's with anything. But they said that it was a very, very hard course. So understandable, like that's a lot of the bread and butter, and I think that still is to this day. It should be a hard course, and anybody that wants to serve there, has got to go through it. So from the UK's perspective, having those years of soldiering experience and skill, I suppose, and exposure under your belt probably really helps go a long way towards setting them up to being able to deal with the, let's say, dare I say, challenges or the rigors of the jungle phase or the patrol procedures course. So anyway, some good comments and stuff in here. I won't carry on. One of the comments and replies to Sully was like, what the hell, that's madness. So he hadn't heard of anybody going through in the UK setting and getting on the UK SF selection after having only been in for 1 year. But hey, if that happens and is allowed to happen in the UK, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Obviously, that's their show, and they've got a tried, proven, and tested method that works for how they like to select people and what they expect. And likely, from what they've seen, helps set people up for success right from the start. So, yeah, if it works for them, they're going to continue doing it. In NZ and Australia, similarly, they've got a process that works for them. People will have their own different opinions. They think that that's too young, or people are too young and they shouldn't be allowed to go on selection and cycle and all that sort of thing. Again, depends on where you come from and what you've been exposed to and what you've done. But obviously NZ and Australia have got tried, proven and tested methods that work. And like I said, that cycle where you're getting into those intense courses, it's a testament, I think, to the quality of the instruction, the experience of the directing staff and the badge members who are able to facilitate and teach and help the candidates through that part. Well, help them within reason. Like there's no hand holding. I'll put it that way. There's no throwing the arms around the shoulders and being, come on man, you got this, or that, any of that sort of stuff on cycle. Like you have to turn up, you have to work hard, you have to pay attention, watch, listen, learn, and then go and apply what it is that they've shown you, at least to the minimum standard, and try and do it to a higher standard if you can. But if you can meet those minimum thresholds and you are diligent and you're consistent and you're disciplined and all of that sort of stuff, it'll go a long way to the directing staff, I guess, eventually deciding favorably in your case to be able to progress on and or, you know, hopefully eventually get badged and go into a squadron. So anyway, that's my take. That's my responses to some of those and just my follow-up in regards to some of the really cool comments and albeit conversations that a couple of the lads have had here on here. But hopefully it helps with some of those that have asked the questions that I responded to in the video. And this may just be an additional follow-up. So until the next video, I'll see you in the next one.